In their mission to beat every single level in the game, Team 0% tracks all sorts of interesting statistics. Not just how many levels there are left. If you want, you can see how many levels there are left in each theme, or how many levels there are left from each country. Today, we're taking a look at uncleared levels from Germany. As I'm recording this, there are 56 levels left from German makers. I'm pretty happy to have helped reduce it this low. Some of these levels didn't take me very long at all, but one of them took me just over 4 hours, and it was pretty brutal. We'll start with a fun shell level. I think this was only uncleared because there were some really annoying Kaizo blocks at the beginning, and you had to play the first few seconds exactly like the creator did. Took me a few minutes of banging my head against a wall to figure out exactly what he wanted from me. After that section though, the level actually opened up a lot and was pretty well designed. It was mostly standard shell tricks, but there was also a small survival section, and some sections with nice movement overall. One thing I figured out was to do an up throw with this shell and catch it again. This action isn't forced, and at first glance it looks unnecessary, but by doing that, I made sure the shell could not collide with the cannon that I need to jump off of. Definitely worth the extra little move. After that, we had a simple surfer, another shell jump, and then the last trick was a mid-air shell jump. Fortunately, I one-shot this trick. In fact, after spending about 20 minutes in editor figuring out the level, it only took me about 10 minutes of attempts to beat. The next level was from the same maker, but this time I found cheese to get around the frustrating beginning. In Mario Maker 1, you can stand on top of one-way gates, so I did just that while I was waiting to perfectly line up the shellmets on rails for the next section. Thanks to my timing, I was able to let go of the run button, and instead of doing insanely precise throws, I was just able to bonk the shells where they needed to go instead. Still not 100% consistent, but much easier than trying to time all those throws perfectly. Then we had a pretty standard shell section that mostly comes down to consistency, although there were a couple controlled shell jumps thrown in there to keep you on your toes. I was out of practice for sure, but nothing overly difficult. Once you're in the door, it's just a midair between you and victory, but this one did take me a couple attempts. Overall, it took me an hour to beat. These next two levels I beat offline. They're both 20-second mostly hold right levels with some Kaizo tricks. I was able to slightly cheese the SMB3 one with a damage boost. I'm really glad this cheese worked because there were a lot of awkward setups and Kaizo blocks in this one. The level was short though, so I was able to get lots of runs to the last section in a pretty short amount of time. The last trick was a bumper midair, which I hadn't done in a while, but thankfully it only took me a few tries. The SMW 20-second level was a lot more polished, but the tricks were actually super basic. At the start you do a P jump, then you have some basic hold right setups leading into a spring jump. You do have to precisely control this spring jump to make it between the saws at the bottom once your iframes run out, but once I figured out what height I needed, this part wasn't hard at all. Then you collect a fire flower, do a mid-air surfer, and shoot a fireball back to kill the shell and collect a key. That's pretty much the whole level. To be honest, I have no idea why this level went uncleared for so long. It was basically just 3 different item tricks and holding right. This last speedrun took me just over 4 hours to beat. It's by a maker that people apparently remember from back in the day. His name is Heisenberg.
You're goddamn right.
Anyways, it starts with a triple jump on a conveyor that's moving against you. To get both a double and a triple jump on a conveyor, I'm pretty certain that one of the jumps has to be on the first frame that you touch the ground. Then there are some much easier jumps, including this section where you kick a big beetle to give it a speed boost, then you get another triple jump off a conveyor moving against you. Just one jump this time though, so not frame perfect. Then you do a sort of tight ground pound spring jump, and enter a classic speedrun staple of a too tall corridor. Jumping over these munchers is really annoying because you can do too well and die to the next set of munchers before you even touch the ground and can jump again. This whole section's very precise and not particularly fun. I especially hated this jump on the piranha plant. It was very difficult to time. The next hard jump was through the door transition. It was a diagonal one-tile spike jump, which isn't too bad usually, but it was made a little tricky by the fact that I couldn't slow down. Then you pick up this bomb and throw it to activate the POW, do some more muncher jumps, and do a tight triple jump and twirls to make it over these spikes. The subworld was so much easier in comparison. Even the parts that look kind of precise in this section are really not that hard. I would die to the ground pound section right at the end once, but that was just me making a dumb mistake. It's really not as hard as it might look. After the subworld, there's a small time waster section so Heisenberg could have a tight timer, and then you have to hold left out of this door and make a tight wall jump over this muncher, and then immediately ground pound to grab the wall high enough to wall jump and make it to the flag. I'm free. Get me out. Get me the fuck out. Like I said, this level took me just over 4 hours, and because of how hard the very first jump was, I really did not care for this level. But now, thanks to Thab clearing another one of Heisenberg's levels, he has no uncleared levels left. We'll see how much longer it takes for the other German makers to fall. I'll certainly try to continue to do my part.